Evgenia in the building. Suppity dap dap. EODs will be a little bit shorter than, because I have a trade recap. I'm gonna throw in there. Don't need to cheat anymore, so I'm gonna throw the trade recaps in with the EOD. So Euro JPY came in this morning after the Asian session right here, pushed up into this little flip zone, flip area right here from there to there. Right, if you were to refine it, obviously it'd be there. I obviously use refinements more, which would have been there but didn't reach there. And then we had another boss, boss right here. Another boss right here, coming to 12 to New York, sweep of that high, which now to me tells me that from tomorrow I'll probably stop looking for buyers, right? Because this ends up being an IBOS here, and we've also come into the 4 hour as well, which is the 15-minute swing low as well. Obviously the break of this high here would be higher probability in terms of buys, but there's a bit of confluence in here, man, right? I would bet on this confluence in here to come down into here and then start looking for the buys like that. And then Euro USD, we had a 15-minute boss last week. 15-minute boss, the 15-minute is bearish at this point in time. Calm London session today. I had my eye on this 4 hour zone, right? Just monitoring that. We really didn't get much except a breakout of this Asian high there, still contained within whatever this price action here was, right? Which just ends up being the internal high at this point. Ugh. The internal high at this point, right? And then this would have been the IPOS somewhere down here, lowest point. Somewhere down here, IPOS 15-minute. IPOS somewhere down here. This would have been the high. Once you get the IPOS there, your high would have then moved over there. So during London there would have been nothing to follow. Come down, mini IPOS there, which means the pullback in here would start. And if this price action was happening like right there at a great hour and not 7 p.m. at night, then obviously we'd want to get involved in there. But in terms of today, really nothing to follow. There was nothing to follow. For example, if we did end up having a proper break like right there, right? If we had crossed this, like had an IPOS there, like a break and close, like right there, and then a move into here, and then that's the only time I would have been looking for buys within here to follow that up into this M15 internal high. A little confusing maybe, but in my head it makes sense. And then GBP USD, we had two good trades in here today. Splendid price action, I'd say. What I am most happy about is the showing up, right, also the not being afraid to take a second trade after an initial loss. Let me break these down real quick. Break these down lickety split, man, so they make some sense. Last week we had the IBOS on Friday, and then we had the pullback. So coming into today, we've already had the pullback, and now in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, the order flow for me is moving this way, clear move down here, clear move up, right? This makes it a low that's holding, clear move down, clear move up. But as you can see, we're still within this high and this low. Once we break out of this low here, right here, remember this pattern, this head and shoulders pattern is the one you look for most of the time, right? Head and shoulders is good, man. Even with like SMC type trading, you still use the head and shoulder. Okay, anyway, we break the order flow right here. Let me illustrate that right there. It's not an IBOS per se, it's like internal of the internal, like, I don't know, you need a trained eye to see it. I can see it, right? This, you have a break right there, and then you had a flip right there, right? Flip reaction. By a flip, I mean this right here, where it's a clear reaction, right, to whatever price action is left in here, like this zone in here. It's not a clear zone, but it's a zone. Let me illustrate it so it's just easier to understand. There would be some 15-minute orders in there, right? And then a clear reaction up. Ooh. And then a clear reaction up, and then we come back into here. Now coming back into here, we'd obviously be looking for a risk entry, which I did look for. I did end up looking for a risk entry. I was comfortable with that. And then we took a loss. We pretty much took a immediate loss on this one. Make it tiny like that. Yeah, we pretty much immediately took a loss on that. No problem, because the idea, I think the most important thing here is the overall idea, right? The 15-minute is bearish, heavily bearish. Chihuahua. 15-minute heavily bearish, internal heavily bearish. There's no point in trying to catch a falling knife, right? Looking for buys when sells present themselves like in a good way like this, where it's clear price action. You can clearly see what you're looking for, right? And then of course I take the loss on that. It's okay. I think the idea was decent. We're following the internal and the swing, right? Since it's very bearish, and I'm pretty sure down here the dollar edges up as rate cuts expectations remain, and the pound I think also had some news under pressure. You see, sterling under pressure as BOE week arrives. So I need to get back into the order flow of the news, man. It's very powerful stuff in there. And so this is another, not that I used it per se, but it's just another nod towards bearish plays, right? It makes sense in terms of the bearish plays. Anyway, you take a loss here, right? But the market still pushes up into here. This is then the pivot zone, right? The last zone before breaking the order flow down there, and then coming into here, because we do have a 15-minute chart in here. You would now look for 5-minute entries, and then switch to the M5. The M5 was a tough one, looking for a strong liquidation in terms of the general one we use, where it's move up, create a low, right, and then this low creates a high. You have to get a chalk, strong liquidation, and then look for the sells. This is the usual one we look for, but there is other similar patterns where, like this one, you could use this as an internal low over here, this inside bar. I was not really happy with it because it felt kind of iffy, but the one thing we did have was clear liquidity built here in terms of a double top right there. 15 LQ, right? Clear liquidity, 15-minute double top, clear liquidity, which then means you have your strong liquidation right here. 5-minute strong liquidation right there, and then you look for the entry on the close and break of basically the candlestick that tests the zone, which would have been that small little stop loss, and then you get your 3.3, man. Easy as that, easy as day. I think the stop loss was a little bit bigger, like that. Was my 3.3 was like exactly in there, like literally exactly down there, like exactly. And so it ends up being great trade in, out, and then the market does what the market does, but no greed, right? No greed, trying to look for the break of the internal continuation, what, no. None of that. 3.3 easy, in and out, no problems. And then finally, USD CAD. Coming into today, 15-minute pause. As you can see, really nowhere to play continuations in here. Also, admittedly, I did not have my eye on it as much. I think GBP had the best price action in terms of overall price action. But anyway, yeah, not even a sweep of Asian low. Yeah, it just pretty much shot up straight, man. Nothing to follow within here. We'll just see how it looks tomorrow. I think for today, decent. Pretty happy that even though I did take a loss on the first GU trade, it didn't affect the decision making of the second one, which ends up being a winner. Right? That's good. Very good, in fact. Yeah. Peace.